Hey, what's going on, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of I Trek. Big shout out to every single person that is tapping in at this moment, man. Per usual, I have a handful of interesting and creepy videos for us to go ahead and check out. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button for me, smash that subscribe button if you're not a part of the I Trek fam, and hit that hype button for a good measure. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
Why can't the U.S. just immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we could, but it takes two to tango. We have to get people to take their billion-dollar ship and drive it up. If when Pepe has his big sugar ships coming around and they cost $1 billion, and we say, I think it's okay now, Pepe, take your ship, drive it through the Strait of Hormuz. He may say, let me wait a little while. Now, we are pounding that area, that coast, as you know, left side. We're pounding it, like really pounding it hard. And again, they may have no mindset. We hit every one of their mine droppers. They call it the mine layers, right? The ships. They're pretty sophisticated ships. Every one of them is gone. But it only takes one. So it's a little unfair. You know, you win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing.
I know we all are praying for a rapid solution. Those gas prices and those grocery bills getting crazy out here.
Give it to me straight. What is the worst case scenario that you are predicting here?
I'm predicting that this is going to get worse before it gets better. This is going to be a longer and costlier conflict than just about everybody expected.
You have said that a prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a guaranteed global recession. Do you still stand by that?
Look, yes, the world economy cannot grow without 20% of its energy supply, period.
Rarely do we recognize history in the making. But is that what we are witnessing right now? We're sitting in the middle of an unprecedented time?
Yes, we are experiencing, just as a factual matter, the biggest energy disruption in history. We have to just hope and pray that it doesn't go on for too much longer.
Index of other news tonight at another moment with one of these humanoid robots, this time kicking its CEO in a simulated face-off in China. The robot landing quite a forceful strike right here, appearing to knock the CEO of Engine AI right to the ground there. The CEO, covered in padded gear for the battle, appearing to be unharmed. The company says the moment of man versus robot was about shutting down claims that other videos of this same humanoid robot and its capabilities were just CGI.
Cambridge just dropped new research saying our brains don't fully mature until we're 32. And honestly, it explains a lot. The study finds that there are 4 important ages in brain development: ages 9, 32, 66, and 83. That second one, 32, that's when the frontal lobe finishes developing, not 25 like we all thought. So why does this matter? The frontal lobe controls decision-making, impulse control, long-term planning, and risk assessment. Literally everything marketing exploits. We've been selling to 18 to 25-year-olds as adults for decades, calling them irresponsible for financial decisions, judging them for career uncertainty, and pushing adulting content at them. The science changed. Time for culture to catch up.
It's always still amazing to find out that we are still learning about the human anatomy.
Tesla news is insane. According to a report from Daily Mail, a Tesla engineer was attacked by a Tesla robot during a, quote, brutal and bloody malfunction at the company's Giga Texas factory near Austin. Another report from the Daily Beast says, quote, a robot at Tesla allegedly attacks an engineer, stabbing its metal claws into his back and arm, leaving a trail of blood on the machinery, end quote. Now, of course, in true internet fashion, people have read those headlines and little bits and pieces of articles and jumped to the immediate conclusion that the robot being referenced in these articles is Tesla's humanoid robot known as Optimus. But that is not at all the case. Skynet hasn't taken over, not yet at least. Now, from my understanding, essentially what happened was back in 2021, a robotic assembly arm that's designed to just pick up and move aluminum parts, similar to the robots I'm showing in the video, similar to the robots every manufacturer uses, ended up malfunctioning and grabbing an engineer who was working on another robotic arm nearby, and it pinned him, causing an injury to his back and an open wound on his hand before someone else that worked there hit the emergency stop button. According to the full injury report, the engineer's injuries didn't even require him to take time off. The headlines would make you think he died.
Hey, from my point of view, it doesn't matter what kind of a robot it was. It just matters that it malfunctioned and it could have been deadly.
Another episode of You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy. Car companies have slowly been testing this idea for a while now, but we are starting to see it happen out in the open. Toyota has already rolled out vehicles where certain features are tied to a monthly subscription. Imagine buying a vehicle and then still having to pay for parts of it. Heated seats, subscription. Certain remote features, subscriptions. Even access to some of the service information, subscription.
Here's the 5 subscriptions that the 2025 Toyota Camry has, because y'all want to know, and when I bought it exactly 1 year ago, I was shook too, and my free trials just expired. So number 1 is the Drive Connect, which, as you can see, now says subscribe. Every time I turn my car on, no matter what, it says subscribe now. So this is an AI service I can pay for. This is also if you want to use the built-in navigation. So unless you don't pay and you don't use CarPlay, you can't use anything. Also behind a paywall is the audio feature. Also, if you don't have CarPlay, you'll no longer be able to listen to music here.
Not to mention, many automakers are fully testing full month-to-month programs where a single monthly fee covers vehicle insurance, maintenance, roadside assistance. Oh, and they're also going to have mileage limits for how much that you can drive. That will cost anywhere from $600 to $850. But don't forget that you are going to be living on a universal basic income. That is where it starts to get weird for me. Why are people not questioning where this is going? Most of these vehicles are basically computers on wheels at this point. They are connected to anything and can be updated remotely, and in some cases being controlled from outside the vehicle. So yes, that option opens the door for a future where access to parts of your own vehicle could depend on whether the subscription is active. $8 a month to use your heated seats? Nobody's actually going to own anything this way. And then I start thinking about the electric vehicle push and the pressure that we're seeing on the oil right now with this war, and it makes me wonder, is this another way to slowly price people out of their vehicles that they already have, so then the only option is to buy an electric one? Because when you stand back and you look at it, it's becoming pretty obvious that the future model for a lot of things is not ownership at all. It is renting. And transportation might be one of the biggest examples of that.
Now, coupling this information along with knowing that Elon Musk is going to start creating cars that don't have steering wheels, it almost seems like the power of suggestion would suggest that they don't want us to even worry about driving anywhere. There's a lot to marinate on, and really focus on what the next 3 to 4 years is going to look like and that gap that's going to ensue.
New York City's sinking because it's too heavy. The science says yes. All the buildings here, over 1 million of them, weigh about 1.6 trillion pounds, and that weight is literally pressing down the ground. Is that something that worries you?
No.
Researchers used computer simulations and GPS data to conclude some parts of the city are sinking up to 4 millimeters a year, especially lower Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn. But that's not even the biggest problem. While the city is sinking, sea levels are rising. Water around New York has already gone up to 9 inches since 1950. So when you combine sinking land with rising water, it increases the risk of flooding.
It's gonna be good, don't worry, it's not full now.
So no, New York City is not disappearing tomorrow, but it is sinking, and it's something people are starting to take a little more serious.
This is such a really good example of how people with power and money are disconnected from reality. Last night, Kevin O'Leary, as you can see, wore a $30 million card with Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James on it. Right across from him was another man you probably have never heard of, Jafar Panahi, an Iranian filmmaker who made the film It Was Just an Accident, a feature film where he's been on a tour for over the last year, but now he says he just wants to go home. However, if he goes home, he's going to be sentenced to prison. People are talking about his viral reaction where he just stares at him in confusion and in awe. But it overall shows to you the two realities that we live in North America. When one person goes home, he's safe in his bed with his $1 million card, while another person is literally fighting for his life and freedom.
Our generation might be cooked. So we just got the financial data from Coachella, and a staggering 60% of tickets this year were bought on finance. And it gets worse, because low-key, it's not even just a $600 festival ticket. We're kind of financing everything right now. See, a few years ago, it was largely the big ticket items that cost thousands, like a TV, car, or computers. But in 2025, some of the companies that now offer buy now, pay later include DoorDash, Uber Eats, Shein, Target, and this one's crazy, even Chili's. Chili's. Bro, how are we getting into debt over our dinner? But it might not all be our fault. You see, usually when there's a cost of living crisis, people have to tighten up on unnecessary spending because you're kind of forced to choose between rent and a festival. But the Coachellas and the Ubers of the world, they put their heads together and they said, how do we still make money? So they said, okay, you can't afford $50 on dinner tonight. So how about we do just $5 over 10 weeks? And it has worked. well. By 2023, more than half of Gen Z in the US used BNPL services. In 2024, the US spent more with BNPL than the top 4 countries around the world combined. And by 2027, it's projected $450 billion will be spent this way globally. But debt is debt. And now only 26% of Gen Z believe that they'll own a home by age 35. So the question is buy now, pay later just a trick to get us to spend money we don't have? Or a genuinely convenient tool that allows us to survive through a cost of living crisis?
Yeah, that pay over time definitely is the devil in digital form. But at the same time, people have to take responsibility for their own finances. I mean, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. It's just a sneaky way of the corporations still making their money while giving you the illusion that you can afford it.
This new finding in nature is blowing my mind. Memory loss is connected to bacteria in the gut and to gut-brain signaling. Researchers at the Ark Institute gave teenage mice the gut bacteria of old mice and then watched as their ability to remember things dropped off a cliff. And they found one bacteria in particular that seemed to drive this and proved it because giving the young teenage mice antibiotics restored their ability to perform on memory tests. But the way it impairs memory is really weird. The bacteria produces medium-chain fatty acids, which cause immune cells in the gut to secrete inflammatory cytokines, inflammation, and that inflammation stops the vagus nerve from conveying signals between the gut and the brain. They blocked those inflammatory signals, and again, communication was restored and the memory came back to the mice even when the bacteria was still present in high amounts. The big takeaway here is that some brain aging can be controlled and even reversed by focusing on things happening elsewhere in the body, outside of the brain. They're now looking for treatments that use this same pathway in humans. Follow if you want to hear about it when they publish.
In 2010, a former beetle ecologist predicted America would tear itself apart. Everyone laughed. Peter Turchin, a complexity scientist, said the US and Western Europe would see growing instability over the next decade. He cited stagnating wages, ballooning debt, and too many degree holders chasing too few positions. Colleagues dismissed it. As time went on, he looked more and more right. Turchin calls the mechanism elite overproduction. More people trained for elite roles than roles that exist. The US awards 55,000 doctorates a year. Fewer than 17% get tenure track jobs. An Ohio study of law school's class of 2010 tracked graduates into jobs as pest control technicians, tennis instructors, and lingerie salespeople. This pattern isn't new. Hong Shuo Chen, born to a farming family in 1814 China, failed the civil service exam 4 times. His village had pooled resources to fund his education. After the 4th failure, he declared himself to be God's second son and launched the Taiping Rebellion, one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, with a higher toll than World War I. In 75% of historical cases Turchin analyzed, elite overproduction led to breakdown, not reform. Today, in South Korea, where 69% of young adults hold degrees, cram schools are so competitive that subsidiary cram schools now exist solely to coach students into more prestigious cram schools. Cram schools for cram schools. Brian Kaplan, an American economist, estimates 80% of education's return comes from signaling, not actual skills, which means the system doesn't fail when someone like Ellen Tara James Penny sleeps in her Volvo with $140,000 in debt. That's the system working exactly as designed.
The US military purchased over 1,000 PlayStations to build a supercomputer. Back in the day, the US military needed a supercomputer, and instead of spending millions on one, they just bought 1,760 PlayStation 3s. They called it the Condor cluster, and at that time, it was one of the fastest supercomputers on the planet. Now, the reason they did it is because a PS3 cost about $300. The cell processor inside it was designed for pretty insane parallel processing, more than a normal PC could handle. So for around $500,000 in consoles, they got performance that would have cost them tens of millions with traditional hardware. The Air Force Research Lab actually published a paper about it. They used it for things like radar imaging, pattern recognition, and satellite data processing. This was actual important military workloads running on a gaming console. The military actually had to make sure none of their units were ever connected to the internet so they wouldn't auto-update and break the whole setup. It's kind of funny though, because a lot of hardware advancements come from military, including GPS, but in this case, a gaming console was actually so ahead that they just decided to use that.
That is a complete win for PlayStation, man. Go figure.
NASA has confirmed the loud boom heard by many Ohioans and some Pennsylvanians this morning was actually caused by a meteor. It's one of the stories that we're tracking for you this hour. Videos taken by eyewitnesses show the bright shooting star streaking across the sky, including this one captured by one startled driver's dash cam camera.
Whoa, what the was that?
A NASA spokesperson says the meteor was traveling about 40,000 miles per hour, which he added is fast for a human but slow for a meteor.
She was laughing like it wasn't people in Ohio that were shook by that whole situation. If you're in Ohio and you actually heard it, tap in and let me know if it was as loud as they're talking about.
Jamie Foxx claims when he was in the hospital, they tried to switch him out and he actually saw the white version of him walk through a wall towards him and nobody did anything. This is so wild. Look at this and tell me what you see and what you hear.
The me.
Yes.
When they said I was a that made me flip in the hospital. That's it. These motherfuckers trying to I didn't have a stroke. So I'm sitting in the hospital bed like these, and then I saw me walk into my room, but I'm white, so I see the white me.
But he had a Caesar too, just
not
like you?
all that the white me,
Okay, gotcha.
and I'm like, and I'm trying to get their attention, and no one said anything, and I'm like, that's it. They trying to climb this mother all the thing, and so the next morning I was out of.
Now, when he was in the hospital, we had allegedly heard that all kinds of stuff had happened, that he was unalived, he was almost unalived, and now it's interesting that he's actually talking about he thinks he might have been switched, and he actually saw another version of himself.
Now, I had a chance to see a few of his interviews after that specific one, and he was pretty open and honest about him being on them drugs, so I'm not going to hold too much weight on what Jamie's talking about.
What the heck is this? I had a family member who worked at the Prudential Center in Boston. This is the Museum of Science's live stream on the Boston Harbor. And I have no idea. You'll see it in a second. Gonna go off the building and bam. What is that? Just kind of flying around there. I zoomed in on it and put it in slow motion on the next part of the video. But the crazy part is the next day when he went back to try to replay it to show one of his coworkers, the Museum of Science had actually deleted that hour off of their live stream. So I don't think it was something that we were supposed to see. Is this extraterrestrial? Is this a government experience? This is, again, the Museum of Science in Boston's live cam. Tell me your thoughts.
Have y'all seen what's going on in Texas? Crazy things all up in the sky, zombie warnings at a courthouse in Texas. This video was recorded by this guy right here, and thank you to the girl that reached out to me and sent it to me. This is not a meteor, guys. You can see it going around in circles and doing all sorts of weird stuff. At the same time, they heard something all the way from Ohio to New York, they were saying. It was a loud, crazy boom that shook everything. And we got this thing going on at the same time, and this is in Texas, and obviously in Texas, they're finding little pamphlets that are about preparing for zombies, and I'm not saying it's related, but I'm saying it's weird that all this happens at the same exact time. By the way, have you seen all the meteors lately? Like the last week? It's just every single day we're seeing these in the sky. And don't even lie to yourself and say it's a meteor. This thing is doing gymnastics in the sky, going around in circles and left and right. So I guess zombies is next. What do y'all think?
They always show you who they are. This is Jack O'Connell at the Oscars wearing fangs. It's not Halloween or anything like that, so why would he want to wear fangs? Unless this is his true self. I really don't know what is going on here, but this is very bizarre because every single time they show you exactly what they are about. They show you exactly who they are, and this is no different with Jack O'Connell and the Oscars because every single time they show you who they are. They show you who they serve. And guess what? They serve the devil. They serve Satan. So, again, it's no surprise at all that he chose to wear these things? Or could this be who he really is? If you know, you know.
Reality is optional. Researchers have been moving towards a kind of virtual reality that is directly wired into your brain rather than just having something in front of your eyes and headphones, and it's actually incredible. I did not think that this kind of technology would be possible, but here we are. Now, each sense does have to be replicated, and in order to do that, you have to bypass your sensory system and go directly into the brain. Cochlear implants are already doing something similar. They are bypassing the hair cells and going directly into the auditory nerve. I will say that people who have cochlear implants will tell you that it's not the same as their hearing if they used to have it, and it can be rather unpleasant at times. You will find that a lot of this technology comes from prosthetics. For example, you can simulate smell by bypassing what would normally serve as the hardware of smell and going directly into the brain, and something similar has been done with sight. You can take an image from whatever's in front of you and then translate that into electrical signals. It's still pretty basic, just shapes and shadows. However, the technology is getting better. However, if you can take a real image, you can give people whatever image they want. That means that could be something that is very significant for virtual reality. And for touch, too. I'm not talking about wearing a full-body haptic suit. I'm talking about wiring directly into your neurons so that you can have a sensation. That is possible. There's a few different options here, and they're all pretty invasive, and they're not all that refined yet. Perhaps the more important part at this point is knowing that our brains can adjust, even at the individual neuron level. And for mice, they have no idea what's going on. They're just being dropped into a virtual world where the laws of physics are different, and they too can adjust. Yes, mice when they're in a virtual reality, and this is an optical one that's fully immersive, so they're running on a little treadmill, they can start teleporting themselves in-game once they learn that it gives them a benefit. And with mice, we have demonstrated that we can make them believe they're in a space that they're not presently in. They're having a controlled hallucination that replicates that space. So what do you think? Would you have an invasive piece of hardware put in so that you could play a video game? Because I'll be honest, I've been excited about this kind of technology since I was a little kid, and it's really exciting to see it become a reality. However, I don't think I would get it.
Yeah, those VR headsets are definitely going to be a thing of the past. I mean, there's going to be a point in time where you're going to be in the GTA game for real. I mean, I'm not talking about playing on a TV screen. I'm talking about literally in the game, winning all kinds of fake money for real, or real money like crypto. So that's definitely on the horizon.
Yo, am I the only one that didn't know that GOAL stands for Get Organized Around Living Successfully?
If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview. Listen, in 20 years, won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and that she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get. I came in this business saying I was going to expose.
I think in that interview, he proved that he was the most diabolical comedian of all time. That's why it went so viral.
Can anyone explain what this orb is? It looks like a leaf that's falling down gently, but we know it's not a leaf. It has a glowing feature within it, and it doesn't fall to the ground. You can't say it's wind because the leaves around it are not moving. It is rising gently, illuminating. It is something, but it's not a leaf.
Fun fact of the day. The appearance of Yoda from Star Wars was partially based on Albert Einstein.
How it works, like you said, I have a chip that was implanted onto my skull, and there are 64 threads with 16 electrodes on each thread. I think that's about right. Implanted in my motor cortex on my left side of my brain, specifically correlating to my right hand movement. Obviously, I can't really move, but all the signals are still there. When we did an fMRI, it's just what lit up most on the scans. And so now I can control a computer with my thoughts. That's kind of the very basic level of it all. Video games came first. It was something that I had a passion for before my accident. I had a a lot of fun playing games. It's one of the first things that I did after I got full control of the Neuralink. I just played video games for hours, and it was great. But over the years, not having spent a lot of time playing video games for 8 years, I quickly moved on to other things, how I could improve my life, what I could do now that I couldn't before. Controlling a computer, I think a lot of people take for granted what they're able to do, what they can do with just a computer. For me, it became reconnecting with the world in some way, whether that's through social media or texting or emailing. I just was reconnecting with my friends and family and people who I had never met, doing interviews and all sorts of things, and I was scheduling everything. And then moving on to starting a business, and then going back to school. I had my injury a couple months after my senior year of college, and I was a terrible student then, so I didn't finish my degree, but I decided to go back to school. So last semester was my first time back. I took 22 credit hours. I got a 4.0, so I was much more capable than, like I said, I thought I was.
Neuralink to begin high-volume brain implant production this year. The company will also move to a streamlined, almost entirely automated surgical procedure in 2026, Elon Musk posted on X. Musk added that device threads will go through the dura without the need to remove it, referring to the brain's outer protective layer.
Elon Musk just announced he could restore sight to the blind even if they don't have eyes, with Blind Sight by Neuralink. How it works is a pair of smart glasses captures what's in front of you, sends that footage to your smartphone, which then beams it straight into your brain into the new Neuralink implant called the S2. But right now, the chip can only help you see white dots in your mind's eye, like the very first pixels on a black screen. There's no color, there's no depth, but it is a start, because Elon plans to rapidly increase the number of electrodes to stimulate full field vision and eventually superhuman sight. Think Legolas from Lord of the Rings, where you could see over mountaintops, horizons, and eventually infrared, where you can see heat rather than visible light like a thermal scope. It is crazy. Now, they've already implanted a different kind of chip into patients with ALS and spinal injuries to prove that Neuralink works. And they're using it to move cursors, type, and even play Call of Duty using only their thoughts. But the first blind sight patient gets implanted next year, so we'll be seeing superhero vision pretty soon.
I find it so interesting how every single part of the body can be bioengineered to work 10 times better than it originally did. Pretty wild. That octopus had him fighting for his life.
Colugo is one of the most unique mammals on this planet, and you've probably never even heard of it. It sits on a very lonely branch of the family tree. For a long time, scientists thought that this mammal must be closely related to bats, and you can certainly understand why. You've probably seen gliding mammals like sugar gliders or flying squirrels. The skin membrane of the Colugo is more efficient than any of those other mammals. You can see with the Colugo that skin membrane actually goes all the way to the tip of the tail. This allows them to glide around 70 meters without losing hardly any altitude. In fact, the record length for a glide is around 150 meters. So for us Americans, about a football field and a half. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that for a long time experts thought it must be closely related to bats. We can now test these ideas thanks to DNA and genetics, and when they have done that, they have realized that this is actually more closely related to us and the primates. All of these animals up here from the mouse lemur up are primates, and right next to that is a really lonely branch that the Colugo sits on. So the Colugo diverged from the ancestor of all modern primates just a little bit earlier than the group we call primates. They just missed being in our group. The last thing I want to talk about is their parenting style, because this is also really unique. They're a placental mammal, but in some ways they're more like marsupial parents. They give birth to really little underdeveloped young, and then they essentially create their own pouch out of all of that extra skin, where those young will live for around 2 to 3 years. And yes, that means the Colugo parents have to be able to glide with their young attached. Here's a picture. This unique group of mammals, these primate cousins, can be found across Southeast Asia. In fact, this study found, based on DNA, that there's likely a lot to learn about these animals. There's a lot of diversity we haven't yet uncovered.
What happens to human life if we increasingly live our lives cocooned inside the cultural artifacts coming from a non-human intelligence, from an alien intelligence? And you know, the acronym AI traditionally stood for artificial intelligence. But I think it's more accurate to think about it as an acronym for alien intelligence. Because artificial, it gives the impression that this is an artifact that we create and control. And AI, with every passing year, AI is becoming less and less artificial and more alien, in the sense that we can't predict what kind of new stories and ideas and strategies it will come up with. It thinks, it behaves in a fundamentally alien way.
Wi-Fi router can already detect when somebody walks through your home. Not with a camera, not with a sensor you bought, just the Wi-Fi signal bouncing off your body. Alright, so here's how this works. Your Wi-Fi router is constantly sending out radio waves at about 5 gigahertz. These waves, of course, bounce off of everything. I'm talking your walls, your furniture, and of course your body. And when you move through your home, those reflections change in ways that are really specific to what moved and how it moved. Your router already tracks something called channel state information, or CSI. It's basically how the router optimizes the signal between itself and all your devices. But CSI also encodes the shape and movement of everything between the router and your devices. And of course, that includes you. Your existing network essentially becomes a motion sensor. Now, if what I'm saying is already evoking that scene from The Dark Knight where the Batman uses sonar from cell phones to catch the Joker, you would be pretty close to the money, because motion detection is just step 1. Researchers have already published steps 2 and 3. Let's get into it.
So what's a career today that people think is safe, but that you think is going to be replaced entirely?
The first thing that jumped into my mind when you said that was lawyer. Law school applications, last I checked, went up 21% last year. And I would suggest that was a flight to safety, and that stuff's not safe at all. Lawyering is highly structured. It's very process oriented. It's kind of the ideal environment for AI. And I have friends who are partners in law firms who say, look, I'm giving AI work that would have taken a second or third year associate a week to complete, and it gives it back to me in 20 minutes. So why on earth would I hire a small army of these associates?
I hate to say it, we run, or at least I run, a lot of the contracts through Gemini, ChatGPT, and Grok, and it's surprisingly accurate. I still have a person reviewing everything who's a proper lawyer who could give me the guidance, but so far, the guidance that the AI gives me is almost the same as the actual lawyer, who I'm spending like $300 to $400 an hour for.
And it's slower with a lawyer.
Yes.
Like with ChatGPT, you could literally just upload a PDF and then immediately gets you back whatever you need to know.
And this is the type of information you want to hold on to, because the next 3 to 4 years, that's what the landscape is going to look like. Any kind of contract or a lot of heavy thinking, they're going to leave it up to ChatGPT, Gemini, and all these other programs that are just prone to do that efficiently. Well, you guys, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys while we stopping by, watching and learning with me. If you haven't already, do make sure to smash that like button for me, hit that hype button for me, and if you're not a part of the iTrack fam, man, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and join up. I will definitely catch you on the next one.